Here we are again with a new day and a report. Hello, the Pioneer viewers. The Russia-Ukraine war, one of the #1 topics on the world agenda, continues at full speed. The fight between Ukrainian troops and the Russian troops has spread over the wide area. Both armies are making an intense effort to prevail. However, we clearly see that the Ukrainian army has the advantage. So how is this advantage reflected on the front line? We will try to find the answer to this question in our report. We knew that the Ukrainian troops had a mobilization on the Kherson front line. This mobilization has increased considerably. Russian troops, on the other hand, continue their attempts to advance on the Donetsk front line. Ukrainian troops started to shift the defense forces on the Zaporizhia front line to the Donetsk front line in order to stop these attempts. Let's start the map report, where we will analyze the latest situation on the front line. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications in order not to miss the daily map reports prepared by the Pioneer team and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you're ready. The Pioneer reports. As we stated at the beginning of our report, there is a movement on the Kherson front line. Today we will discuss this activity, but our priority today is the Bakhmut direction. I'm prioritizing the Bakhmut direction because the war here has been on our agenda for a long time. We have heard the name of this region many times during the 20-month war. Let's start with the developments on the Bakhmut front line. The last border change on the Bakhmut front line took place when the Ukrainian army took control of the Klishchivka and Andriivka. According to the latest reports, the Russian army is still persistently attacked these two regions. Ukrainian troops, on the other hand, are stationary in their positions. I think this is a strategy. The Ukrainian army is in an advantageous position. We have mentioned it before. The elevation area around Klishchivka provide a great advantage to the Ukrainian army. This advantage manifested itself both in the offensive phase and the defensive phase. Their successes in these two aspects caused the attacks of the Russian army to be inconclusive. In addition, these unsuccessful attacks are very important for the Ukrainian army because the attacks only caused the Russian army to suffer more losses. In other words, the number of Russian soldiers that Ukrainian troops will find against them in a possible offensive is rapidly decreasing. From this point of view, we can say that the attacks of the Russian army should continue in order for the Ukrainian army to advance. In this way, the Ukrainian defense line, which is already in an advantageous position, will destroy more Russian soldiers and facilitate the advance of the Ukrainian army. We see that the Ukrainian troops have carried out a series of attacks in the direction of the Zlopnoe, accompanied by the support of artillery units. However, there is no border change. The Ukrainian presence in the region has considerably worn out the Russian army. We see similar activities of the Russian troops in the direction of Berkhivka, located north of Bakhmut city center. We need to make the following criticisms here. The Ukrainian army had made a critical gain south of Bakhmut city center. It has also considerably worn out the Russian troops in the region. However, it did not show a similar attitude towards the north of Bakhmut city center. No progress of the Russian troops in the region has been observed so far. However, this does not mean that it will not always be observed. Therefore, Ukrainian troops need to conduct operations in the north of Bakhmut city center, just like the operations in the south of Bakhmut city center. There's already a Bakhmut victory that has been expected for a long time. But as this time passes, disturbances and problems arise. After the Bakhmut front line, we continue our report by examining the developments on the Donetsk front line. As you know, there was an intense pressure from the Russian army here. Let us state the following. This pressure is not as intense as in the first days. The pressure of the Russian troops is decreasing day by day. Russian losses have a great effect on this. Russian attacks have slowed down due to the increasing of the Russian losses. Despite all this situation, we see that the traditional Marinka attacks of the Russian army continues, but there is no result. Ukrainian troops in the region repelled the attacks of the Russian army in the direction of Marinka. A large number of Russian soldiers and Russian armored vehicles were destroyed during the fighting there. We can say that a large number of Russian armored vehicles were buried in the Donetsk front line, which is known as the Armored Vehicle Cemetery. On the other hand, troops of the Russian armed forces clashed near the slag heap near the Avdiivka coking plant. Following the shelling, the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces near Stepnoe. However, there is no proven progress so far. The border line is largely unchanged. Ukrainian forces are holding their positions despite tough battles. In addition, a large number of new Ukrainian troops are being deployed to the region. Some of the newly dispatched troops are allegedly coming from the Zaporizhia front line. However, these allegations are not yet certain. Let's continue with the Zaporizhia front line. Let's see if there is information about the dispatch from this region. In the Roboty section of the Zaporizhia front line, we see that the Ukrainian troops have managed to make some progress from the Sherbovkov direction towards Mirny and west of the village of Robotny. From this point of view, we can say that the allegations that some of the Ukrainian units in the region were transferred to the Donetsk front line is true, because the Ukrainian army is already superior in the region. When interpreting the battles here, we need to take this into account. Ukrainian troops are already in control of the vast majority of the areas in question. With these attacks, they had the chance to dominate more areas. Thus, they are one step closer to their goals of expanding the front of the attacks and that already occupied bridgehead in the Tokmak direction. Ukrainian troops are also carried out a series of offensive operations in the direction of Novoprokopivka and Verbov. However, these offensive operations were mostly aimed at wearing down the Russian army. Therefore, there is no change of borders. Now we come to Kherson front line, which is our main agenda item. According to the latest reports, in the Kherson-Kreminsk direction, Ukrainian troops supported by artillery have resumed offensive operations near Poima and Peshchaknoe. We observed heavy fighting, especially in the Krinky direction. Russian artillery units are targeting Ukrainian positions carrying out these attacks. New border changes in the region are imminent. When we look at the artillery activity in the region, we see that the Russian artillery units are targeting Ukrainian positions in the Kherson, Antonivka, Sadoyovony, Tyaganika, and Bersivlav. Ukrainian artillery is hitting Russian targets at Golaya, Pristania, Aloyushki, Podstepnoe, and Sevastopol. What do you think? Do you think Ukrainian troops will be able to advance along the Kherson front line? How long do you think its advance will last? What do you think about the current situation on the front line in general? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.